Out of the depths, I cry to you, O Lord.
So yeah, this went unsaid yesterday on the first video, so I want to go ahead and get this out of the way. Please go to the Fat Electrician's channel and watch his original material. This is not a substitute for that. This man is amazing. He deserves every subscription that he gets, in my opinion. And I can't leave a link in the description because I'm still illiterate when it comes to technology. I'm learning, hence why I probably have 15 subs. However, I will mention it and tell you to go to the Fat Electrician. Let's get into it.
Pappy gun. So he goes out and somehow or another he acquires $3,500 and then finds somebody that's already headed back to Manila on orders, bribes them with $3,500, gives them his wedding ring and a note that says, get this to Polly at this address. And that letter tells her, have the kids ready, pack one bag apiece, be on this road at this time, I'll be there to pick you up. 10 days later, Pappy steals a military plane, flies it into the Philippines with no escort in enemy territory, completely unguarded at night, lands it on the civilian road that he told his wife to meet him at, and he sits there and he waits, and he waits, and he waits, and his family doesn't show up. So he does the only thing he can do. He heads back to Australia.
Okay, so here's the thing for me, real quick. How are you not losing your mind at this point? As in, I don't care if you're enlisted or you're an officer in the majority of the military branches, regardless of what branch you are a part of, we are dependent upon muscle memory, our training. We train the body, we train the mind, and in just about every situation, that's going to kick in automatically. So I guess the point I'm trying to bring to the forefront is, and I can't speak for every soldier, but as for myself, I had to compartmentalize each stage. As in, yes, I know I'm married. Yes, I know I have a family. However, they're not here. They're not in basic. They're not in school. They're not in gunnery. They're not on deployment. So when you bring that to the game, psychologically, that is going to have to be a horrific fucking hand that you're going to have to play. I would not want those cards.
Pappy gets back to Australia, starts trying to figure out what to do, starts going to different military units. Pappy, he just got commissioned as a captain. He wasn't attached to a unit formally. They were just like, here's your commission, go do whatever the fuck we tell you, and that's what was going on. He doesn't really know who his chain of command even is, so he just starts wandering around military bases from unit to unit, trying to figure out how he can help. He starts volunteering for any dangerous mission, recon, supply runs, anything that will get him back or close to Manila so he can ideally also rescue his family. During this time, he never gets the opportunity to rescue his family. Allegedly, according to legend, he crashes 3 to 5 planes, survives every single one of them, and just somehow keeps making his way back to Australia. And every time he makes it back to Australia, nothing's improving. Everybody is just kind of like scrambling around. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. A lot of people just aren't doing anything because nobody knows what to do. And then Pappy eventually finds Colonel Davies of the 27th Bomb Group, who has the same attitude and demeanor as Pappy of, we need to get shit done. And the problem Colonel Davies is having is he can't get any supplies from the US government because the Quartermaster Corps isn't in warfighting mode. They're in like do everything by the book mode. So they're just hoarding all these supplies in warehouses and refusing to give them out to the combat units, so they can't get anything done because they can't get their planes up and running. So Pappy decides he's going to take matters into his own hands. He goes to Colonel Davies and is like, hey, give me a couple of mechanics that know everything you guys need to get these planes up and running, and we'll go get it. Colonel Davies gives him the 2 mechanics. They hop in 2 trucks. They drive out to a Quartermaster US military warehouse with Tommy guns and rob the warehouse. A couple hours later, Pappy and the 2 mechanics come rolling back up to Colonel Davies' base with all the shit they needed to get these planes up and running, and Colonel Davies is like, do I want to know how you got this? And Pappy's like, nope. To which Colonel Davies replies, good, get more. And for a while, this becomes Pappy's new job, strategically transferring equipment to an alternate location for Colonel Davies.
Okay, wait, time out. I gotta have the shirt. I love this channel. I'm going to be doing at least one reaction a week to this man.
Whatever he needs, he gets, and whatever he can't get, he figures out how to make. And if he can't make it on the spot, he goes out to machine shops in Australia and convinces them to make it for him. Nobody knows where he got the money to do it. He wasn't going to rob civilians. They're not the ones that lied to him and got his family put in an internment camp, so he doesn't want to screw them over. He somehow manages to pay the Australian manufacturing shops for all the aircraft parts they need. Nobody knows where he got the money, but he amassed $16,000 in receipts, which is approximately like $320,000 today.
Was all this legal? Absolutely.
Pappy is a man possessed. He's working 24/7 all the time. People are going, they're working first shift, second shift, coming back to work, and Pappy is still there working. And this is where the legend of Pappy Guns starts to take off, and he gets the nickname Pappy because everybody's like, who the fuck is this old captain that works 24/7, doesn't need to sleep, and is willing to rob people with a gun? And after working around the clock for weeks, they finally got a bunch of the P-40s ready to get into the action, and they're going to ship them off to Bataan to help the Allied forces fight the Japanese. Only problem, for the most part, these are all rookie pilots. Navigating over open ocean is extremely difficult, and they don't know the area, so Pappy's like, fine, I'll do it myself. I will guide the P-40s there in my Beech 18. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to slip off and rescue my family. So they take off, Pappy's in his Beech 18, he's guiding the P-40s. They're going to have to make multiple stops to refuel on different islands along the way, and they make it to their second refueling point, and one of the P-40s blows a tire. So naturally, they're going to leave that P-40 there, wait for it to get repaired, and the rest of the P-40s are going to continue to Bataan. No, I'm just kidding. The commander is like, no, that would be too risky because then there would be one P-40 traveling by itself, and he would be an easy target for the Japanese. So instead of having the P-40, the warplane designed for aerial combat, travel by itself, we're going to have Pappy in his Beech 18 civilian plane with no armor, full of fuel tanks that aren't self-sealing, and no guns. We're going to have him fly back by himself, pick up a tire, bring it back, and then he can fix it.
Yeah, okay. Anybody in the military knows that's that bullshit. It's always bullshit. It is what it is. They do some of the dumbest things that make no fucking sense, but you still have to do it because your life is not your own and you have no authority for the duration of your contract. So, okay, got it. But yeah, that's just bullshit. Everybody's used to it, brother. And I'm sure there's going to be a fuck ton more of it to come.
Seems fair.
Pappy's like, fine, whatever, flies back, gets the tire, flies back to this island. When he gets back to the island, fixes the tire, and then he's informed that the Japanese have just captured the Dutch East Indies, which was their next refueling point, so now they can't make it to Bataan. At this point, the P-40s get diverted, they get sent out to Java. Pappy takes them to Java, then he heads back to Australia, and at this point, he now realizes the only plane with enough fuel to be able to make it from Australia straight to the Philippines is going to be a massive bomber, and he doesn't have that plane, so he's going to have to acquire one if he wants to save his family. So Pappy gets back to Australia, goes out to the junkyard. The junkyard is just being salvaged to death. Like, there's no supplies, everybody's cannibalizing everything to keep planes in the air, but he finds his B-17 that's just completely destroyed. It's all shot up, it's ruined, it's been dug through for any valuable parts, but they're not Pappy. Pappy finds this B-17. It says Miss EMF painted on the side, which he later found out meant every morning fixing because before it was decommissioned, they had to work on it every single day to keep this plane in the air. Pappy goes to work around the clock working on Miss EMF, stealing all the parts that he needs, and he gets his B-17 to the point that it can fly. And unlike his civilian Beech 18, this can carry guns and ammunition, which is something Pappy definitely wants. So that's exactly what he gets. We don't really know how for sure, but allegedly the word on the street is by this point in time, Pappy had started carrying 2 Colt 45s on a chest rig on either side of his body, and he convinced a supply sergeant and some aviation mechanics to load up his plane at gunpoint.
Damn!
Cause when the fire dies down, what the fuck you gonna do? Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
He then proceeds to go on multiple combat bombing missions by himself under no orders. Then the next opportunity to get to the Philippines arises. Basically, what's going on at this point is Allied forces on the ground are just getting ravaged by malaria. They need to get malaria medication smuggled into the Philippines to keep their troops up and fighting. So they're going to get all this malaria medication, and they need a crazy pilot to fly all the way there, and Pappy volunteers, thinking it's going to be another opportunity to get close to my family. Maybe I'll be able to rescue them. So he loads up his plane with quinine, malaria medication, and flies straight straight towards Bataan. On the way there, about 12 hours in, Japanese Zeros spot him. They come in, they shoot him down. Pappy's somehow able to limp this thing to the nearest island where he has to crash land into a coconut grove. Pappy then links up with friendlies on the island, finds out that his family is still alive, and then figures out a way to make his way back to Australia. A submarine comes and picks him up. When he gets back to Australia, he checks out the flight line, and there is 14 brand new B-25 medium bombers fresh off the factory line sitting there. Pappy is immediately pumped, like, okay, we're getting new planes, we're gonna be able to fight this war, we're gonna win, I'm gonna get my family back. Pappy starts talking with the NCO that's on the flight line, you know, taking care of these planes, and he informs him, oh, actually, these planes aren't for America, even though they're made by America in American factories. These planes actually belong to the Dutch Air Force, which is in shambles, and they don't even have enough men to man these planes. Immediately, Pappy's pissed, like, what the fuck what are you talking about? We've got American pilots sitting around that don't have planes that are ready to go get into combat, and these are just gonna sit here empty. And the NCO's just like, yep, pretty much that's about it.
That's that bullshit that we all know and come to fucking love. I'm sure there's more on the way.
That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So Pappy immediately goes to Colonel Davies, tells Colonel Davies what's going on. Colonel Davies kicks it up to his chain of command, and the general above Colonel Davies writes an order for the American military to seize those B-25s. Have the Dutch agreed to this? No. Does Pappy care? Also no.
I am in fucking stitches. Pappy is killing me, guys. Killing me.
So Pappy and a bunch of his boys roll up to this Dutch airfield, and they're like, hey, we're supposed to take these planes. Here's our written orders. And the Dutch are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody told us anything about this. No, you're not taking our planes. We need to look into this. We need to run this up our chain of command. You know, pretty understandable, normal chain of procedure that they're asking here. And Pappy's like, oh, sure, go ahead. You mind if we go look at the planes while you guys figure that out? And they're like, yeah, go ahead, go look at them, whatever. They go in the office to check this with the chain of command. Pappy and his guys hop in the planes and just fucking take off. By the time they land back at their airfield, the Dutch have already radioed up to the American chain of command. There's some major from a different chain of command that's there barking orders saying, we need to take the planes back right now. You stole these planes, blah, 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 blah. Colonel Davies comes around the corner and is like, what orders do you have to make us send these planes back? And he's like, I have verbal orders from so-and-so. And he's like, cool, well, I have written orders right here, and written orders trump verbal orders, so fuck off, the planes are ours. Pappy has just strategically acquired an entire fleet of B-25 medium bombers. But there's a problem. They don't have bomb sights, so they're kind of worthless. The Dutch probably took the bomb sights out and then locked them up in the weapons cabinet, which would be standard procedure at this point in time. So yeah, they're basically just giant transport planes without the ability to accurately bomb, so they're worthless. At which point, Pappy says, I'll be right back. Pappy takes off, goes back to the Dutch airfield with his Colt 45s and robs the supply sergeant and takes the bomb sights and brings them back.
Cause when the fire dies down, what the fuck you gonna do? Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Pappy doesn't give a fuck. What are they gonna do? Court-martial him? They already got his family put in an internment camp. He doesn't care. So now Pappy starts learning everything about bombers, right? He was a Navy pilot. He's only done dive bombing. These things can't dive bomb. They're big conventional bombers dropping bombs from, 10,000 feet up in the air. And he very quickly realizes that that's not effective against ships at all. He's gonna have to figure out a way to successfully use a B-25 effectively against enemy ships. And he decides you're just gonna have to fly super low and go right above them and drop the bombs to just literally park it right on their foreheads. That's the only way this is going to work. The problem is you're going to get absolutely lit up by enemy anti-aircraft fire. So now he has to figure out a way to suppress the enemy anti-aircraft fire. So he goes out and he acquires an A-20 Havoc, a light bomber. And then he also goes out and acquires 6 50 caliber machine guns and figures out a way to mount them in the nose. And the A-20 Havoc is going to go in and strafe the entire deck, taking out the anti-aircraft guns, or at the very least suppressing them so they can't shoot at the B-25s, and the B-25s are going to fly right over the top and bomb the fuck out of the ship and sink it. That's the plan. Okay, and just so we're all on the same page, I'm like, oh, he throws some 50 cals in a plane. You don't just throw 6 50 caliber machine guns in the nose of a plane, okay? You're looking at like thousands of pounds of extra weight between the guns and the ammunition in the nose of the plane, throwing off the weight, the center of gravity, the aerodynamics, absolutely everything. Regardless, Pappy works around the clock and figures out how to make it work. And then it dawns on him, well, what if I do the same thing to the B-25s? Then they can light up the enemy anti-aircraft fire on their way in as well. It's even more suppressing fire.
That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. and it's worked out pretty well so far.
So Pappy goes to work again. This time it's way harder for whatever reason. The aerodynamics, the center of gravity just aren't working out. He's trying to mount 8 50 caliber machine guns in the nose of a B-25. He is working on it like 20 hours a day, nonstop. Just a man that's absolutely possessed. While he's doing this, he winds up breaking his pinky. He smashes it somehow, whatever. He breaks his pinky. It's all mangled. It's hanging sideways. Goes to the doctor, gets it splinted. The splint keeps coming off. He keeps bumping it on shit. It fucking hurts. Finally, he's had enough. It's taken too much of his time off from his project so he can save his family, and it's just a pinky. He doesn't fucking need it. So he goes to his medic and he's like, hey, I need you to cut this off. And the medic is like, dude, I'm just a medic. I'm not a surgeon. Let's take you to the hospital. We'll see what they can do. He's not even trying to question this guy. He knows Pappy at this point. He knows he's serious. So he goes to the hospital with Pappy. They go in, they talk to the surgeon. The surgeon's like, oh, we can splint it. We can do a cast. I can do some surgery, blah, 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 blah. And Pappy's like, no, just cut the fucker off. I'm busy. I don't have time for this shit. And the surgeon is like, I can't ethically do that. At which point Pappy pulls out one of his 45s, points it at his finger and says, you're going to cut it off or you're going to clean it off the wall. What do you want to do? The doctor cut it off. And Pappy goes right back to work with 9 fingers. By this point, he's got a functioning prototype. He's going up on combat missions in a plane that's not tested, managing to keep this thing in the air while it's so heavy in the nose. And the first time he fires it in combat, it almost knocks the plane out of the sky and rips the guns right out of the nose cone, ripping the entire thing off. Luckily, he manages to keep it in the air, brings it back. It's okay, I got the useful data. He reinforces the nose cone. He figures out how to mount the 50 calibers directly to the airframe. He's making this work. Also, around this time, he acquires a pet lizard that he names Sam. Apparently, it's just some big ass lizard that sits on his shoulder all day and hisses at people when they walk by while he's working. So everybody's just kind of like the old crazy dude Pappy has just, he's lost his fucking mind. He continues working on the plane. He continues going up on these test runs. Sam the lizard is flying shotgun on his shoulder the entire time. Eventually, he thinks he's got it. He thinks he's perfected the design. He has made this plane work somehow, and he wants to go test it. The problem is, there's no combat missions for the day, so he takes off anyways, and he's just flying around looking for something to shoot. He flies over a farm, and he sees a cow. Pappy and Sam, it was probably Sam's idea, but Pappy ends up strafing this cow, and allegedly, the 50 caliber machine gun fire from 8 50 cals picked the cow so high up into the air that he actually flew underneath it.
We even had a guy that picked up an oxen with his 50s coming off a target and flew under the oxen.
He then lands his plane, goes, apologizes, pays the farmer $16, loads what's left of the cow into his plane, brings it back to the base, and that's what everybody had for dinner that night.
Love that barbecue.
Regardless, the plane is, it's almost done. It's almost there. He's just got a few more things to refine, and while he's working on that, he hears that the United States Army Air Force has this new general in charge of everybody, and he's like, I don't care. It's one more bureaucrat to fucking annoy me that I'm not gonna listen to. Just keep them away from me. So General Kinney, Dick Bong's boss, General Kinney, like the famous General Kinney, he winds up showing up to theater. He's, getting ushered around, meeting all the leadership, and he keeps hearing story after story about this crazy 40-year-old dude that's trying to get his family back, that's going on every crazy mission they've got, and he's just working like a madman on building some Franken plane in the hangar, and he's like, I gotta fucking meet this guy. So he goes out to the aircraft hangar where he's working, and they meet. And at first, Pappy's like, fucking great, another bureaucrat's gonna tell me I can't do what I'm doing, can't save my family, whatever, I don't care. But they meet, they start talking, and he very quickly realizes that General Kinney is not only a capable airplane mechanic that knows what the fuck he's talking about, he also wants to win this war and isn't afraid to do unconventional shit.
I thought I was the only one.
Because General Kinney has a pretty big history of wanting to do unconventional shit as well. He actually helped pioneer, design, and convince the American government to build 23-pound fragmentation bombs back in the day, and he has 3,000 of them laying around, so he goes to Pappy and is like, sounds like it could be pretty useful to drop those on top mid-strafing run. They got little parachutes, they float down, 23-pound hand grenades just explode all over the enemy after you strafe the shit out of them, and Pappy's like, fuck yeah, I can make that work. He then shows General Kinney the A-20 Havoc that's already up and functioning, and he's like, I could probably mount him in here and we could drop him after we do the strafing run. And he's like, that would be perfect. Also, if you can make me more of these, there's a bunch of combat going on in Papua New Guinea on this place called the Kokoda Trail that we're having all this ground combat. I could send the A-20s in to strafe enemy ground troops on the trail. It would be absolutely devastating. So that's exactly what they do. Pappy builds 15 more of the A-20 Havocs. They go into combat at the Kokoda Trail and play a decisive factor in the victory. victory. And Pappy Gunn's not about to let all the other pilots have all the fun in the planes that he just built, so he goes to the Kokoda Trail and conducts 5 ground strafing missions. On his 5th mission, he's up in the air with Sam, strafing enemy soldiers, and then he gets hit with shrapnel that impales his arm to his chair and ends up killing Sam, and Sam dies in his hand.
Killed his dog.
Okay, Pappy hasn't gave a fuck in a long time. Now he's running at an active deficit. They've killed the only thing that's brought him any joy in the past year and a half. But the silver lining is General Kenny, seeing how effective the A-20 Havocs were at ground combat, makes Pappy Gunn his head of special projects. Pappy no longer has to steal shit. He no longer has to acquire stuff and rob people. He has a blank check with the DoD budget. He's gonna get whatever the fuck he wants whenever he wants it. And with that, he decides the B-25s might be even more effective at sinking enemy ships if they could skip bomb. Skip bombing was a technique that was originally pioneered by the British, where the plan was fly really fast right above the water, drop your bomb going so fast that the bomb skips across the water like a rock on a pond and then clashes into the side of the enemy ship and explodes. Pappy goes in, gets his skip bombs, modifies the fuses so they have an 11-second delay, giving them enough time that they're going to be able to punch into the enemy ship's hull and then explode on the inside. He then retrofits the B-25 to function with this new skip bombing technique, and then he goes out and tests it on some abandoned ship they have off the coast, and it's effective, at which point he goes to work with a bunch of other mechanics, modifying all 14 of the B-25s, and then he gets more B-25s coming in, and he modifies all those too. So now the B-25 has been changed from a medium bomber into what amounts to an A-10 Warthog that can skip bombs at you.
What an absolute legend. I don't know if you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. Maybe I'm enjoying it too much, but I'm fucking loving this. Pappy has absolutely blown my mind.
Late February 1943, things in the Pacific Theater are, the tide is starting to turn. On the ground, both sides are sucking. It's turning into a war of attrition. Both sides, the American and the Japanese, are struggling to get their guys troops, supplies, and reinforcements. Military intelligence has found out that the Japanese are launching a major reinforcement operation for New Guinea, where they're sending in an entire division of Japanese Marines. They're going to be coming in on 8 troop transports, being escorted by 8 Japanese destroyers. If they can somehow prevent these troops from making it to New Guinea and destroy their ships, America's going to be able to take it over that much faster. If so facto, the war ends sooner. Pappy gets his family back. Pappy is all about it. It's time to throw in the B-25s. All right, so here's the plan. Obviously, these ships are going to have fighter cover from a bunch of Japanese Zeros. We're going to send in America's new badass fighter plane, the P-38 Lightning. They're going to go clear out the Zeros. Then we're going to send in a bunch of B-17 conventional bombers. They're going to drop their bombs from 10,000 feet up in the air. It's going to be horrifically ineffective. But we know that. It's part of the plan. We're not dropping those bombs because we think they're going to sink the ships. We're dropping those bombs because it's going to force the ships to break out of their formation and create chaos. After their formation's shattered, then we send in the A-20s to strafe the decks and suppress the enemy anti-aircraft, and then we send in the B-25s to suppress them even more and skip bombs right into the sides of their hulls. It's a good plan. Pappy's excited. General Kenny steps in and is like, no, you're too valuable to lose in combat. You're not allowed to go. So naturally, Pappy goes anyways. March 3rd, 1943, Battle of the Bismarck Sea. Everything goes according to plan. The P-38s go in, they take out the Zeros. The B-17s go in, they drop their bombs, they scatter the enemy formation, creating chaos. The A-20s go in, and this is where things take an unprecedented turn. You see, the Japanese didn't know that the A-20 Strafer was a thing yet. So when they saw a bunch of light bombers approaching at low altitude, they naturally assumed that they were torpedo bombers, because obviously that's the only thing that could be. Now, the doctrine for dealing with torpedo bombers, if you're a ship, is to turn towards the torpedo bombers so you reduce how big of a target you are, because if you let them be on your full broadside, they can hit the whole side of their ship. But if you turn to face them, they'd have to hit you dead on right on the front for a torpedo to be effective. So all their ships start turning towards the A-20 Havocs, assuming they're torpedo bombers. And what that does is it lines it up so that the A-20 Havocs, instead of strafing width-wise across the deck, are able to strafe the entire deck from bow to stern.
I love it when a plan comes together.
And those decks are covered in enemy infantry soldiers, by the way, or Or at least they were.
I go, did you ever kill anybody? And he goes, I threw grenades into bunkers. I go, were there people in there? He goes, there were. Yeah.
Then the B-25s come in, strafing and skipping bombs right into the sides of the hull. By the time the smoke settles, they've sunk all 8 enemy troop transports and 4 of the destroyers. And the death toll for the Japanese men on board range anywhere from 3 to 10,000. And that's it. Pappy is pretty much the driving factor and the mastermind behind the liberation of New Guinea. After seeing this, General Kinney radios back to America and is like, hey, we need to just start making the B-25s like this from the factory. He sends like the designs, the rough sketches, the gist, the idea, and the engineers back home in America are like, that's not possible. You can't put that much weight in the front of a B-25. This will never work. It's against the laws of physics. So Kenny is like, fuck this. Pappy, pack your shit up. You're going to America. You're going to show them how to build a fucking plane. Pappy goes back to America, goes into this boardroom of all these engineers, all these, smart people that know what the fuck is going on, and they explain to him why this would never work, why it's physically impossible, blah, 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 blah. And Pappy's like, it works. I've done it. We did it with like 25 B-25s already, and we sank a bunch of Japanese ships. By the way, here's a bunch of pictures because I rigged cameras up to all my B-55s too, so I could yell World Star while I fucking did it. Pappy then goes and shows the engineers how he did it, and this becomes an official manufactured model of the B-25, the B-25 Strafer. After that, Pappy heads back to Australia, gotta save his family, gets back to Australia, starts working as a head of special projects for General Kinney again, and then he finds out that the engineers back in America one-upped him. They didn't figure out how to mount 8 50 calibers in the B-25. They figured out how to mount 12 50 calibers in the B-25, and that's gonna be the new standard B-25 Strafer. Okay, they've one-upped them, sure. Is there multiple of them? Yes. Do they have engineering degrees? Yes. Do they have unlimited resources and didn't cobble it together in an aircraft hangar in the middle of a war zone? Yes. But also, Pappy Gun's not going to let that shit stand. He's got to one-up them back. Pappy goes back to work in his lab. You know what's cooler than a B-25 with 12 50 caliber machine guns? A B-25 with 4 50 caliber machine guns and a 75 millimeter fucking tank cannon out of a Sherman tank. Yes, he actually does this. Not only does it work, he actually goes out in the testing and sinks multiple enemy ships with a fucking tank cannon he mounted inside of a plane, and then it also becomes an official B-25 design, the B-25G. By August of 1943, Pappy's designs are getting mass produced in America and sent into combat, and they are playing a pivotal role in ground warfare. They are part of the reason that we were able to win the WEWAC campaign in 1943. But this still doesn't solve the problem. Like, okay, cool, America's winning the war now, but also I still need to get my wife and kids back. So he starts plotting on how he's going to get back to the Philippines and rescue his family. By 1944, intelligence says that the Japanese are storing hundreds of Japanese planes in Manila on Dewey Boulevard. And Pappy's like, they're in a straight line. They're on a fucking street. Let me load up the B-25 with extra fuel tanks. I will fly straight there. I've got enough for a one-way trip. I will strafe all of these planes, take out hundreds of Japanese planes. I'll either land or I'll crash land, and then I'll figure out how to make it back to Australia. In reality, in the back of his head, he's like, then I'm gonna go rescue my fucking family. But General Kinney steps in and is like, no, absolutely not. You're too valuable. By September of 1944, America's gearing up to re-invade and retake the Philippines, and Pappy's like, let me go in, I'll organize guerrillas, I'll start fighting right now. And General Kinney, again, is like, dude, no, you are more valuable to me than a Japanese general. We're not doing this. You're staying here. Then, as the plans for the invasion of the Philippines get drawn up, they come to the realization that the American aircraft carriers aren't going to be enough to be able to maintain or even compete for air superiority, and they're going to need a landing strip somewhere in the area, preferably in Leyte. Problem, there isn't one. So they're literally, if this plan's going to work, they're going to have to send in a forward engineer party that's going to have to take the beach, get rid of all the Japanese there, and then build a fucking airstrip in a matter of like a day or two if they're going to have any chance of retaking the Philippines. It's something that's just, it's not possible. But luckily they have one guy that can do the impossible, Pappy Gun. Pappy then hand selects his entire raiding and construction crew, makes an amphibious landing in Leyte, takes the beach, and builds a fucking airstrip big enough for every American heavy bomber to land on in the matter of 3 days. And on the very first of those 3 days, it becomes very apparent that some heavy equipment would be pretty fucking handy, like, I don't know, a bulldozer. So Pappy takes off on his own behind enemy lines and steals a Japanese bulldozer and then uses that to build the airstrip. After they get this airstrip up and running, the Japanese bomb the airstrip and Pappy dives underneath a Jeep and he gets hit with a white phosphorus bomb and he wakes up in the hospital after being in a coma. When he finally wakes up out of his coma, he has excruciating pain that seems to be agitated by like noise. Any music, loudspeakers, anything just makes this searing pain in his arm where he was hit with this white phosphorus go crazy, so much so that it makes him pass out. The doctors evaluate him. They tell him it's all in his head. They tell him he's making it up. He's malingering. He's trying to get out of combat. They obviously don't know who the fuck Pappy Gunn is. He's just another wounded soldier to them.
Oh, I bet you this makes Pappy fucking livid. I can attest that it's infuriating when part of your body used to work and no longer works. So I'm sure that he is livid right now. And no, I'm not talking about Viagra, you assholes.
And this goes on for weeks, just excruciating pain, so much so he's blacking out constantly. He feels horrible. He's like on his deathbed. It's actively killing him. And then General Kinney finds out what's going on, chews out all the doctors like, this dude's a fucking hero. He's not malingering. Trust me, I have to do everything I can to keep him out of combat. Whatever's going on, he's not fucking faking it. Check him out again. They do more and more. They check him. They finally do an exploratory surgery and find out that a piece of the white phosphorus, which is extremely fucking hot, had entered his body and seared one of the nerves in his arm, and it was still open and red and pissed off, and that's how he was getting agitated by sound. So they go in there and cut everything out, patch him up, and now he's just in the hospital recovering. And while he's in the hospital recovering, he gets more visitors. His wife and kids. While he was in the hospital, America had liberated the Philippines, including Santo Tomas internment camp, where his family was being held, and they managed to survive. After his family had been liberated, it took them a couple of days to make their way to the hospital where Pappy was being held, and the entire time, every different person they got handed off to was like, holy shit, you're Pappy Gunn's wife and kids. All they could hear about was all the legendary exploits and what their dad did to save them and how he's the reason that they're getting saved this early in the war. And then Pappy Gunn got to hear all the stories of what they had been up to for the past couple of years. And in this internment camp, they were starved, they were beaten, they were treated horribly. His wife came down with appendicitis and they didn't have general anesthesia, and she had to have her appendix removed while she was awake. And as the stories went on, as horrific as they were, there was a silver lining, and it was the fact that his kids took after him. His daughter had a cyst on her spine and had to have surgery, and she was in a full body cast for months. She used that body cast to hide and smuggle intel in and out of the camp to guerrilla fighting groups. Quite literally, some of the intel that was probably used by Pappy to help save them was delivered by them. His sons would break out of the camp at night and go steal food and smuggle it back in to feed their sisters and their mom, themselves, and other people. The entire time, Pappy Gunn was fighting his ass off to get back to his family. They were doing the exact same thing to get back to him, and that is the best ending to one of the best stories I think I've ever told. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch, maybe drink some Echelon. All that's available over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
Yeah, I hate when people say I'm speechless and then they continue to bray bullshit. I'm just going to say I don't have words for this ending. It was an amazing story. Please visit the Fat Electrician. Give him your sub. He deserves it. I can't wait till the next one. And he got Papa Bear on this one. I'm not going to lie to you. Guys, I hope you come back. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next video.
This is one of those stories that I really hope gets made into a movie, but I know that they would ruin it at the same time because that seems too unrealistic. Bear.
The girls know that when a man takes a bath, his wiener floats just a little bit, just a little bit.